I'm a bad person. I think most people have said this phrase at some point in their lives. I'm a bad person. And people say that because they think it's honest, because they think it's true. They say, I do bad things or I think bad thoughts. And that's the whole of what I am. I am my thoughts and I am my actions. What else? How could I perceive myself? How could I judge myself except by my thoughts and actions? And so if I do bad things and I think bad thoughts and those thoughts and actions form habits and those habits form character, my character is bad, then I'm a bad person. The problem with this statement is that if you're not so much concerned with honesty and you're more concerned with change, then you're not going to get a lot out of this statement. If you just say, I'm a bad person, it's honest, maybe it's true. Maybe you are a bad person, but it's not inspiring you toward change. Think of the modes of the body. Think of how we can relate to our environment. Think of the worst possible state that a human can be in, drowning. You know, when you are at the bottom of an ocean and you're being sucked down by the currents and the whirlpools, you're drowning. You have no control. And that's the sensation of when you tell yourself, I'm a bad person, I'm a bad person. It stacks on top of you. It weighs you down at the bottom of the ocean. And you have nothing positive. You have no orientation. It's so dark, you can't even see the sun. You can't see anything. You're in total blackness and you're drowning. You can't breathe. And you can't live there for very long. That's not really any life at all. I mean, the only result of that is death. We can't survive when we're drowning. And then as you go up from drowning, maybe you start floating. You start floating, but you're still being carried along by the currents of life. You know, external events are determining your mindset. When you see a negative news story, you get sucked into it. When you see something addictive or distracting, you get sucked into it. You don't have what we call self-control, right? So you're not drowning, you're not technically dying, but who knows where you're going? Maybe you're going to a good place if you trust the currents. And maybe if they were nature's currents, that would be one thing, but maybe someone's making the currents. And I would be skeptical that I'm going to end up in an island of paradise. Maybe I'm going to end up bashing against the rocks. Maybe I'm going to end up in a whirlpool. Maybe floating, if you're just floating, you're inevitably drowning. And so where we really want to be is we want to be swimming. We don't want to be drowning. We don't want to just be floating forever, but we want to be swimming somewhere. And we have to, when we swim, we have to have a direction in mind. And maybe you don't even see the goal. Maybe you're out in the middle of the ocean and you can't see any land, you can't see anything. But if you simply allow yourself to drown, or you allow yourself to float, which may lead to you drowning, then you're not headed toward anything positive. Even if it's just headed toward the sun, or just headed toward north, or just maybe it's too cloudy, you can't see where you're going, but you're trying to move forward and you have a positive plan, you have a positive strategy. I'm going to swim. I'm going to push against the water. I'm going to have some resistance, that there's this environment around me and I'm going to resist it. I'm going to attack it. I'm going to confront it. I'm going to tango with it. I'm not just going to drown in it. I'm not just going to float in it. I'm not just going to let it carry me along. And so when you make a statement like, I'm a bad person, it's a statement like, I'm drowning. It doesn't actually give you a way out of that situation. It's honest. If you're drowning, if you're a bad person, that can be honest. But it doesn't give you any way out of that. And in fact, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So what needs to happen is you need to make a positive statement. But if you say, well, I can say I'm a bad person because that's honest. I can say that I'm drowning, but I can't say I'm a good person. I can't say I'm a good person. That would not be honest. And furthermore, I have a fear that if I said I'm a good person, and I'm doing the right things and everything's great, that this would be just another form of drowning, that I would excuse all my bad behavior. I'd say, well, I'm good enough, and I wouldn't change, and I would still be headed toward the same really bad place. And so I don't want to say I'm a good person. That's not honest, and that's not a good strategy to just say, oh, I'm perfect the way I am. And we see the flaw with that. And that, to me, is the flaw with floating. Just floating on goodness. Oh, I'm a good person and everything's right in the world. Well, you're just floating. You're just sticking with, you're not doing anything. You're not drowning, saying I'm bad, I'm bad, I'm bad. But you're just floating and I'm good and everything is wonderful, when a lot of times things are not always good and wonderful. Sometimes you need to make a change. And that's the key word, is change can only happen through direction and action. There's no such thing as change without direction. All change has direction. In a chemical reaction, in any sort of physical system, there's always direction. Sometimes it's confused, sometimes it's all over the place, sometimes it's not focused, but all change requires direction, whether it's the change that the currents are pulling you by, but we don't want to rely on those. We want to participate in life. We want to try and attempt, because even if our attempts are hopeless, it's the only chance we have. It's the only chance we have. So to have change, we need action, and to have action, we need direction. So that's where the swimming comes in. And so what does that look like in terms of self-definition? We've said I'm bad, that's drowning. I'm good, that's floating. What does I'm swimming look like? Well, I'm changing. And I'm identifying with my highest desire. When we call ourselves bad, we say, I'm bad because I have bad thoughts in my head, in my mind, and I'm bad because I do bad things. I have bad actions. I use my body, I use my mind and everything in bad ways, maybe my speech. And while those things may be true, there comes a point at which we have to look at the body as a tool, and we have to look at the mind as a tool. The mind is a collection of language, it's a collection of thoughts, and these are ultimately tools. But two people can look at the same exact thoughts in different ways. And so we have to separate out the part of our identity that is our mind, that is our series of thoughts and assumptions and beliefs and stories and mythologies and language. We have to separate that out from what we want. And the reason we know this is true, the reason we know that there's a distinction between the mind and something else you can call, the soul, the reason that we know there's a distinction between these two things is because they can be in disharmony. That our thoughts, we can say, oh, I wish I would stop worrying. Well, the worry is a product of your mind. Your worry is, I'm having these thoughts, I'm having these emotions, but there's some other part of yourself that's not your emotions, that's not your thoughts, that's saying, I don't like these thoughts and I don't like these emotions. And so our capacity to look at our thoughts, our negative thoughts, to look at our emotions, our negative emotions, say, I don't want to dwell in this so much. I don't like the way I feel compelled and obsessed with negative thoughts. And I don't like the way that leads me to negative actions. And it makes me have a bad identity, a bad self-image. I don't like that. And so that process, that ability, that consciousness of our mind, because even animals have brains, animals have ideas, animal ideas, they have the idea of mating, the idea of food, and so on. And we have those ideas, but we have the ability to look at our will and make decisions about how we relate to our mind. We relate to our thoughts and emotions. And so really it's about saying, okay, maybe my mind, it's bad. Maybe my body, it's bad. But the fact that I can acknowledge that and say that, animals can't do that. And so the fact that we're able to do that says that there's a higher will involved. There's a will that says, I don't want these thoughts, I don't want these emotions, I don't want my body to do this, I don't want these actions, I don't want these habits and this character. So that's the will. And so the will has to start commanding. The will has to say, I command my mind. I command it. Command it to do what? Well, you want to do good. You want to do good things. You want to do good things. But hold off on that, because before we can get to those good things, there's all this bad stuff. You say, well, I want to lose weight, but I'm afraid. You know, I want to have more friends. I want to have relationships in my life, but I'm resentful. You say, well, you know, I really want to work on this project. I want to be creative. But, you know, whether it's fear or whether it's resentment or whether it's selfishness. You know, I'm too selfish. I'm too lazy. I don't want to put in the effort. I don't want to put in the work. There's an obstacle. If you're in a bad place, and if you're in a good place, turn off the video. I don't know how you managed to get 11 minutes in. Super boring if you're in a good place. But if you're in a bad place, if you struggle with this mindset, with this pessimism and self-criticism, and you say, well, you know, calling myself bad, I've done that my whole life and it hasn't worked. And it keeps getting worse, and I want to try something new, and I'm willing to try anything new. And I'm willing to sacrifice the old vision I had of myself being a bad person, but I don't know how to get there. Because I can't just say I'm a good person, because that's not true. I'm not good. I'm a perfectionist, and that's great. The only way that we have great and beautiful things is through perfectionism, but I can't honestly say I'm a good person. So I want to change, and so that's my will. I'm going to identify that. I'm going to say that's the I. I command my mind to do what? I need to smash through my obstacle to get to what I want. And so you may know what you want, whether it's a weight loss goal or whether it's a relationship goal or whether it's a career goal or a creative project. There's something standing in between you and that goal, and you have to identify it. And most obstacles reduce to fear, resentment, or selfishness. You could come up with others, you could use different language, you could describe it in different ways, but you want a simple heuristic, because most of the time, this nominalist theory of psychology, well, there's just an infinite number of negative feelings. No, actually, they're pretty simple, right? It's anger or it's sadness. Usually it's reducible to that. You could say, well, it's depression, but depression is stemming from anger or sadness. So I have anger and sadness over some kind of loss, and I don't want to move toward my goals because I'm afraid of losing again in the future. I'm afraid of stacking on that pain, so I'm afraid. And that fear, in a sense, it's selfishness, because I could be helping other people, I could be doing great things, but I'm living in fear, and that's selfish. And part of it could be resentment toward yourself, resentment toward other people, resentment toward your family, your upbringing, or society, or elites, and saying, oh, they've messed everything up, and so I can't do anything. You can always do something. You can always do something, even if it's just changing your mind, even if it's just remembering something, even if it's just a prayer, even if it's just meditation. No matter if you're alive, you still have decisions and choices in the way that you relate to your mind, to your thoughts, to your emotions. That you always have that choice, no matter how enslaved you are. So you can be perfectly free in terms of your material reality. You can say, I could drive anywhere in the country, I could fly anywhere in the world, I could live anywhere I want, I could get any job, I could spend time around any number of people, every type of people, but I don't want to do any of that. I feel miserable. So we're identifying what is our goal, what do we really want. We don't want to feel miserable, we don't want to be a bad person. What do we really want, and then what's the obstacle? And we put it all together and we say, I command my mind to eliminate fear, selfishness, resentment, whatever you think the top one is for you, whatever you identify as that negative driver in your life. For me, I would say it's fear. I command my mind to eliminate all fear, and then you put your mission statement, your purpose, so that I can express my creativity, so that I can lose the weight, so that I can become the best version of myself, so I can become a good person, so that I can serve others. And that's the one for me, to serve others. And to put it all together, I command my mind to eliminate all fear, to serve as many people as possible. Now, when you say that, It's not going to magically transform your life overnight. It's just a series of words. And if you don't believe in it, it won't work. But I'll tell you what does work. The placebo effect. That's science. Don't be a science denier. There's more studies on the placebo effect than perhaps any other psychological phenomenon. And it's very clear. The science is settled that if you believe that something works, it will work. If you believe that you will fail, you will find out a way to fail, no matter how talented or gifted, no matter how many resources you have at your disposal, no matter how intelligent you are. You will always fail if you believe that you will fail. If you set up some kind of crazy, insane condition like, I can't succeed unless I have this person in my corner. I can't succeed unless I have $1 million. I can't succeed unless people treat me a certain way, or I have certain resources that might have a certain environment. If you set up these conditions, you will fail. If you say, I command my mind to eliminate whatever that is, a resentment toward other people, fear of risk, fear of loss, and selfishness, which in many ways could be reduced to fear or laziness or whatever you'd call it. But when you really believe that there is a separate you, there is a true you that's separate from your mind, separate from your body, and that it can command your mind to attack, to destroy, to eliminate these things. And if you're religious, then that obviously has something to do with God. This true I is coming from God. It's in line with God. And so when you command things, you're commanding it in the name of God. But if you don't, you can still command. You can still recognize this. I command my mind to eliminate the fear, selfishness, and resentment so that I can be creative, become the best version of myself to serve as many people as possible. And you simplify that and you say it and you proclaim it and you claim it, that this is my identity. This is who I am. I am not a drowner. I'm not a floater. I'm a swimmer. I'm a doer. I'm a wanter. I'm a willer. That I command. This is who I am. I am a commander. I'm the commander of my life, because you're not going to get, I don't care how many life coaches you hire. No one can force you to be a good person. It's a choice that you have to make yourself to work on yourself. People can yell at you, people can push you, people can beat you with sticks, people can offer you cookies, they can use carrot and stick tactics, and it doesn't matter. If you're not motivated at some point internally, if you don't respond, if you don't react, if you don't change something inside yourself, then you'll remain the same or get worse. So you have to be action focused. You have to be plan focused. You have to be, and not far-flung plans and not complex plans, but the plan stems from the identity. What plan do I want? I want a plan that's based on my command. I command my mind to eliminate all fear, to serve as many people as possible. And you say that, and you say it loud, and you go in the car and you scream it. Because the way that we use our body and the way that we use our voice matters. When's the last time you screamed in love? Most people scream in anger. Most people, they're screaming, and think about that, it's so powerful. Skyrim, Fusro, screaming is powerful. And it's a great tool, it's a great ability, it's a gift, it's a blessing that we have that power in our voice. Not everyone does, but most people have this power to scream, to yell, to use their energy, to give power to an idea. And we can all find that when we're angry enough, when we're angry, when we're frustrated, when we're negative. Everyone can yell, everyone can scream, everyone has that capacity. Most people do, right? But just as we have that capacity for resentment, hatred, anger, frustration, we also have that capacity for love and positivity and will and building and construction. And so why not use our abilities, all of them, the full spectrum of warfare? Why not use every single tool at our disposal to change ourselves? Because we're in a war. If you identify with anything I'm saying, if you don't, it's been 20 minutes, man. You're wasting your time. But if you do, you're in a war. You're in a war for your life. You're in a war for your soul, for the dominance of your soul over your life, to live a soulful life, as opposed to a, people say mindful, but it's mind-controlled life, where you let your mind, your thoughts, your language, your stories and myths, you let them control your life when they don't serve you. And if they serve you, great. Myths can be great. Stories can be great. I mean, some of the greatest things in lives are good stories and good myths and good religion. But if your religion, if what you worship, if your habits, if it's not good and you need to make a change, then you need to go back to your source, go back to your soul, and stop getting stuck in your mind, because your mind isn't going to help you. If you're a smart, intelligent person, and you're like, I know what I need to do, I know what I'm doing is wrong, I know this and I know that, but nothing's happening, nothing's changing, action isn't taking place, you need to go to your soul. You need to start commanding. You need to start shouting. You need to start moving. You need to say, all of this is connected. I'm gonna be willing to do anything. I don't care if it's silly. I don't care if people make fun of me. I don't care. I'm not going to be afraid of people judging me. And they will judge you. If you make changes in your life, even if you generate wealth, you generate relationships, you generate businesses, you generate creative projects, people will resent you for that, and people will judge you for that. People will hate you for that. And if you're selfish, you're going to be afraid, oh, I don't want people to judge me, so I'll just remain miserable. And that way, no one's going to resent me. No one's going to be jealous of me. No one's going to be envious of me. I'm just going to be, it's called, oh, I'm just being humble. That's not being humble. That's a selfish form of humility. When you have strengths, when you have abilities, if you can breathe, if you can talk, if you can type, if you can share, if you can empathize, if you can say a kind word. There are people who are smart and brilliant, but they need love. And if you can love, even non-verbally, if you can give somebody a hug, you can change somebody's life, and that person, through you, can go on to do great things. No matter how down on yourself you are about your abilities, and 90% of abilities are not through genetics. You know, oh, well, you know, I was just born genetically gifted, or oh, I was born genetically ungifted. I don't believe that genetics don't exist. I think they exist, but I've seen in my own life and the life of others genetic capacities and potentials which go unfulfilled for 80 years and then you die, or shorter. We don't know how long we're going to live. Accidents happen. There's some crazy people on the road. And we make mistakes, but our decisions and our persistence and our unwillingness to give up and spending the time and effort is really where most skills are developed. I don't care how genetically talented you are, if you don't put the work and the effort in and the persistence, it's not going to happen. Nothing's going to happen. You're going to waste your life. So if you're a person who's quote-unquote mediocre, but you are so dedicated and you're so persistent, and you refuse to be distracted, you refuse to let your mind dominate your soul, but instead you raise up your soul and you command your mind, then you're going to be so much more effective in helping people and bringing good into the world and doing right by yourself, by God, than if you are just genetically gifted. That's the world we live in. We're all given certain resources, and we have no control over the resources that we're given. We have no control over the way we look to start out with. I mean, people can get plastic surgery, I suppose, but we don't, for the most part, we don't have control over how we look. We don't have control over the money our parents had, or how they treated us, or what country we were born in, or how we were raised. We don't have control over any of that. That's in the past. All we can say is what we're going to do. What decisions are we going to make? We have resources, and our first resources are our mind and our body, and we need to get those in order. Because if we neglect our mind and we neglect our body, and they're connected, really the brain is part of your body. It's an organ in your body. If we neglect those things, then we have nothing. If you have a completely wasted away body, if you have a completely out of order, a non-functional body because you've ignored it and you haven't tried your best to make it the best it can be, how's your mind going to be doing? Well, look at your mind. If you treat your mind the same way and you neglect it, you don't train it, instead you just allow it to drown or maybe drift and float around to get carried by the currents in social media, what's your attention span going to look like? What's your discipline going to look like? What's your willpower going to look like? What are your thoughts going to be like? They're going to be, oh, hysteria and chaos and, oh, we're all going to die and everything's terrible. From that negative mindset of everything's horrible, why would you ever want to do anything good? If you identify the universe as a terrible place, everyone's terrible, Schopenhauer was right, everything's horrible, are you ever going to do anything good? Maybe you think you are, but I question it. I question when I've slipped into that, when I've practiced those mental patterns, I just feel like I've spent enough time that it's empirical. For me, it's empirical. And maybe we're all different. Maybe some people, they're the most productive when they just hate the world and everything's miserable. But for me, it's paralyzing. It's paralyzing. So we have to decide what we're going to do with our resources, what we're going to do with our mind and our body. And if we're held back by this notion of that would be silly, or I'm afraid of what I would lose, maybe I would lose friends, maybe I'd lose my identity, I'd lose who I am. I define myself as a lazy person. If I changed, I wouldn't be myself anymore, and that's kind of scary. It doesn't make sense. It's not rational when you say it out loud, when you talk to other people about it, but it's a legitimate fear. It's something that you feel, and fear is real. Fear isn't fake, it's a real thing, and it's giving you signals. It's telling you, you're going to die, I need to protect you. And you can listen to that, but you have to critically analyze it. You have to actually ask, is this legit? How much should I invest in this fear? Should I dwell in it? Should I drown in it? Should I float in it? Should I let my fear be the currents that pull me along in life? Or should I be looking towards something positive? Should I be swimming toward a direction that I want to go? Maybe it's the wrong direction, but the only way you're ever going to test that theory is by doing it. If you say, oh, well, what's the point of swimming? What's the point of going north, south, east, or west? It's all the same to me. We're all going to die in the end. The world is nothing. Maybe, but there's only one way to test that. And that's by choosing the direction that aligns highest with your soul and commanding your mind to do it, to say, I command my mind to eliminate those fears, to eliminate that laziness, that selfishness, so that I can swim forward, so I can move forward. And I think what we'll find in this universe is that the goodness that you're looking for, that the meaning that you're looking for, is not in some island, because you'll get to the island, you say, this is great, it's got fruits and stuff, but I'm kind of lonely, I'm kind of bored, I want to see more. I want to expand my horizons, I want to grow more. I don't want to just sit on this island for the rest of my life. Yeah, it was great that I got from the middle ocean, I was lost at sea, I was drowning, I was floating, and I decided to swim, and I got to the island, but that's not good enough. You don't want to stay there. You want to keep going. You want to go to the next vista, and that's risky because it's like, but I found this safe island. I found my 9-to-5 job. I have a couple of friends, and I have the mediocre life, and it's not really what I wanted, but it's good enough. But you have to understand that you were in a bad place and you got to a better place, but don't stop. Don't stop, because the happiness, the fulfillment, the meaning, the purpose of life is not to attain some state and stay there. The purpose of life is to continue growing, to continue willing, to continue wanting. and to continue challenging yourself, and to continue to confront these fears and obstacles and selfishness and the things that hold you back, this resentment, to smash through that. And it's always going to be there. You're never going to eliminate fear in your life. Never. It's always going to be, it's part of who we are as human beings. We're always going to have the positive and the negative. You're never going to eliminate fear. You're never going to totally eliminate your resentment. You're never going to be a perfect person who is completely selfless. It's not going to happen. But the idea that therefore you shouldn't bother trying is going to make you miserable. And the only thing that's going to give you a sense of purpose and meaning and drive and forward thinking is by saying, I'm going to try to be better today than I was yesterday. And before I even make that plan or that strategy, I'm going to establish my will and what I'm commanding my mind to do. I command my mind to eliminate the fear, the selfishness, the resentment, so that I can serve as many people as possible through my creative work and through becoming the best person that I can be. Because if I'm not the best person I can be, that's a sin against other people. I'm not giving them the best version of myself. How can I help other people if I'm not a good person? How can a bad person help good people? Well, there's actually a way to do that. A bad person can help good people, as paradoxical as it sounds. A bad person can help people if that bad person is working to be a better person. So, hope you got something out of this. If you didn't, unsubscribe and dislike the video. If you did, thumbs up the video, leave a short sentence comment about, a timestamp you thought was valuable. Share the video on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, whatever social media, Telegram. Besides that, I guess there's that bell notification button that people are interested. If you want to get in contact me in a one-on-one, I've been traveling around the country and meeting everyone who asked me. I haven't turned down a single person. Well over 30 people at this point. Traveled coast to coast twice. And if you're interested in getting in contact with me, I'm on Twitter, @Jokkull, Jokkull. You can follow me, you can mention me, get my attention, and we'll start a conversation. And I'm interested in finding people who have skills, whether it's music, programming, artistry. Maybe they just like to read, edit. Maybe they like to edit videos. Maybe they like to, whatever it is. I want to gather people together who can share their love and their passion for different skills in life, different arts, and to build things, to create groups of people who are capable of accomplishing goals through the help of others. Whether that means getting help or giving help. Sometimes the most motivating thing is to say, wow, I didn't want to work on art by myself. I have this artistic skill, but I'm not motivated to make my own art for myself, but I'm motivated to make art for other people. And so I want to connect people together geographically on the basis of their skills, basis of their interests, a basis of their common goals. And if you want to be a part of that, if you want to help me, because I need help, I can't do it all on my own. If you want to help me, get in touch, get in contact. I've been so amazed and surprised by the people who have found my videos helpful, and I'm grateful for your time and attention. And I'm grateful for everything that I've received, because this right now, not saying I'll do this forever, right? We continue to change, we continue to grow, we go on different platforms, we go in real life, we're not just on the internet. We don't want to stay stuck on the internet, we're trying to get off. But doing this right now, this is the meaning of my life, this is my purpose. So, you, dear listener, you have given me the greatest gift of all, which is to give me purpose in my life, to give me meaning in my life, to say I know what I need to do, and I have direction. I don't know who these people are. They're anonymous people on the internet, but as I've done this, people have come out and they've become real to me. I've met them. They're real people. And I've done so little, but the little that I've done, just having one person say, you know what, you weren't the whole reason that I've made some changes in my life, some positive changes, but you were part of that. And that to me is invaluable, and I just want to keep growing on it. I mean, that's so good. It's so good to hear that from people, and I just want more. I don't want to stop. I don't want to be satisfied with where I am. I want to grow the channel. I want to lift up other people, and I know there's so many people hidden in my audience who are so much better at me. There's better speakers, there's better artists, better musicians, better writers, better editors, better programmers. There are people with amazing skills and talents. I want to lift up those people, and if I can say at the end of the day, I helped someone truly express their potential, then that's me expressing my potential. So grateful to you all. Until next time, take care. Bye-bye.